Good morning, Venters. I hope you guys are doing well. Today is a day that weighs heavy on my heart because today is my son's birthday. He's 25 years old today, and it's really kind of a tough deal, guys, because I really haven't had a great relationship with my son in quite a few years. So this video is going to be a little bit about failure. And speaking of failure, I failed to get out here early in the morning when it was really nice, and I waited till now. And now it's pretty darn hot outside, but it is what it is. Hopefully I'll get over things here. So anyway, back to my son. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good.
I think we all have situations in life that we're not the happiest about. Some of us might have jobs that we hate. Some of us are obviously overweight, right? Hopefully you're walking with me now, trying to do something about that weight issue. But sometimes I think we can all agree that there's problems that are just kind of outside of our power, outside of our hands, right? And I think this is one of those. When you have somebody that doesn't really want to be in your life, you can ask them to change their mind. You can try to ask them for forgiveness. But sometimes it's not really a ask forgiveness type situation. Sometimes people just write you out of their lives. And sometimes that's just kind of the way it is. And we can tell people that, hey, you gotta move on with your life and get over it. But when it comes to an ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, that's one thing. But when it comes to somebody like a child or a parent, I think it's a different level, I'm one of these guys that when I was growing up, it would be totally commonplace to have arguments with friends and family. But one of the things that I was just totally unaware of in life was that sometimes people can maintain and hold on to those grievances, right? And sometimes people don't forgive others. And that can be tough to deal with because in my situation, we would have squabbles and little fights amongst us when I was growing up, but we would usually quash it by the time you went to sleep. And so you woke up the next morning and you were friends with Joey again, or you were talking with your uncle or your mom again, right? But sometimes people aren't necessarily like us. And so when I was growing up and I would play, when my son was growing up rather, and I would play Ratchet and Clank with him, I never thought there would be a day where I would look back at those moments of playing video games with my son. And I never really thought in a million years that would be where, my memories of my son were limited to. I didn't really get to see him too much as a teenager, by his choice, not mine. I haven't really had him in my life as an adult, by his choice, not mine. There were moments as an adult and as a teenager that he was in my life, but I quickly discovered that it was usually just because he needed something. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, like, oh my God, my kids only need me when they want money or whatever, or only want to talk to me when they need money. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is those were the situations where we came together. And during those situations, I was thinking that we were good. But then when the money dried up, or if all of a sudden I kind of stood up for myself and said, well, hey, I'm giving you money because you're telling me you're in college, and your mom's telling me you need money because you're in college. And then I come to find out, that you've been out of college for over a year and that you dropped out. Well, what's the money that you're asking me about? When, you stand up for yourself as a human being and say, hey, something's not right about this, let's talk. And ever since then, I haven't heard from my son again. So it's one of those things where in life, sometimes people treat us this way. I'm not equating my son to a gold digger by any means, but in your life, you might have had situations where maybe a past boyfriend or girlfriend was somewhat of a gold digger, right? Where when money dried up, all of a sudden, so did the relationship. So did the friendships that you have with people. It's funny because you don't want to live in a world where money brings happiness, but the reality is lack of money brings misery sometimes. And that lack of money can lead to desperation. And I think what happened in my son's early adult life is he probably found that a lot of his friends didn't really have too many funds, right? Because I don't think many kids in their early 20s have that many funds. And so I think his natural thought was, I'll see if my dad can help. And some people, when they need your help, they will smile and they will be the best friend in the world. And then when you aren't there to help them, sometimes their true colors come out. And again, I'm trying to do a comparison between people in real life and then my son. I don't equate my son to a gold-digging boyfriend or girlfriend. Nothing like that. But you might have somebody like that in your life. And the reason I mention that is because it brings you and me to a common ground where we can kind of see where each other is coming from. And the reality is, I'm living in this world where it seems like it's not just my son, but it seems like it's everybody that I deal with. It seems like you're only a part of their life or important in their life if you're helping them accomplish a goal or a part of their agenda. And if you're not a part of that, you're no longer really a part of their lives. I think that's why when we're young, we might have 10, 15 friends. And by the time we're in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, we're very much lucky if we still have a couple of friends, you know? And so what you can do is you can say, well, let's let people go through their life and then they'll discover moments of loneliness or moments where maybe their kids aren't in their life and they'll realize the error of their ways. One of the things that I've been doing lately is I've been going and watching a lot of these videos where they'll show parents that are estranged from their kids. And a lot of times, these videos kind of serve as echo chambers. People are either on the side of the parents or on the side of the kids. And if you leave a comment, it might look like you're on one side or the other. But I'm not really on either side of that argument. The side that I'm on is the side about forgiveness and about keeping communication open, and that we shouldn't burn bridges. You know, it's one thing if you ditch your job and you burn a bridge and you're never allowed to go back to that job. But you shouldn't burn bridges when it comes to friends and family members. Those bridges should be fortified and solidified, and we should try our darndest to keep those lines of communication open. Look, you can disagree with me today all you want, but the problem is when you hold on to that grievance and you end up disagreeing with me for the rest of your life to the point where you don't want your kids or your parents in your life. You know, imagine this. Imagine you're married to somebody, and imagine you decide to kind of keep away and keep an estrangement up between you and your parents. So every time your mom and dad text you or calls you, you never answer the phone, you never return any texts, right? And you're living your good life because you don't need them. Now fast forward 5, 10, 15 years, all of a sudden you and your spouse, let's say you guys are going through a separation, a heated divorce. Those things happen all the time. You can Google heated divorce right now, and a million stories will probably pop up, right? And I can imagine a situation where all these people right now that are telling you, you don't need your dad, you don't need your mom, you don't need any toxic parents or toxic kids in your life. I can imagine a situation where in the future you're going through a divorce with your partner, and your partner says, I don't want joint custody, and I don't want my ex to have full custody. I want full custody, and my ex doesn't even have a relationship with their parents, right? Could you imagine that? So what's going to happen is when my ex is at work, those kids are going to be alone, or they're going to be with complete strangers, where if you give me full custody, they're going to have a situation where I have a backup that can help me. I have my mom, I have my dad, I have my family members. And there's going to be judges out there, because one of the things lawyers will tell you is they never quite know where the judge is going to rule, right? There's always that iffy space that the lawyer can feel confident. But remember, they have to tell you they feel confident. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't want their services, right? And I would imagine that out of every 100 judges, there's probably a judge or two out there that would say, well, you know what? you don't really have any family members in your life. You're willing to shut people out forever. You're not willing to forgive. You hold grudges. I think I am going to let your wife or your husband have full custody of the child. You have some problems with communication. You shut people out. I'm telling you, these things that we think we're so smart about and we're so strategic, and oh, my mom and my dad are toxic and I don't want to be in their life ever. You never know. Your spouse could be keeping track of every one of those negative things you say about your parents. Hey, you know, John, his mom and dad have been begging him to forgive them and come back in his life and share the kids with the family. And guess what? All of a sudden, your ex in the divorce, all of a sudden she calls up your mom and dad as witnesses for her side. And she lets mom and dad know that, hey, if you help me get custody of our kids, I'll make sure that as the grandparents, you get to visit those kids. Now, could you imagine that? I bet you when you're in those echo chambers where they tell you, yeah, you don't need your mom or dad ever, they're not going to be there for you for that situation, are they? And some people might roll their eyes and say, Jesse, that's stupid. No, you'd be surprised. If you're in a divorce and you're trying to get custody and you get your ex-husband or ex-wife's parents on your side, you're going to win that custody. And all they have to say is, this is a person that lacks communication. This is a person that holds grudges and grievances. This is a person that doesn't know how to forgive. This person is going to shut their child out right when the child turns 18 and goes out the door. And when a child learns from their parent to ignore their parents, guess what you're asking for in the future? You're asking for a future where your child ignores you. And it's really crazy because some people have really, really good reasons not to be in their parents' lives. You know, if your dad or mom are physically violent, if your dad or mom are just evil individuals, I mean, I'm not even going to go into particulars because I think we all know there are legitimate reasons to get people out of your life. But if the reason that they're not in your life is because they voted for another candidate than you, or they don't necessarily like your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or they don't necessarily like the decisions you're making, those really aren't good reasons to shut out family members and close friends. And that's the thing. You've heard of the statement, the truth hurts, right? There are moments in life where you need people not to be your echo chamber. There are moments in life where you need people to say, you know what? You need to forgive people. You know, there was a video that's real popular, and it's about a woman that's estranged from her kids, or from her daughter, excuse me. And she says that the straw that broke the camel's back is when they voted for one candidate over the other. And again, that's not the whole reason that the estrangement happened, right? That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But what it boils down to is this. If you're willing to ditch out on a family member or friend because of who they vote for, then everybody in the office that you work for, why are you talking with them? They probably voted for that same person. And what if your mom lied, right? What if your mom says, hey, I voted for Trump, but in reality, they just don't want to tell people they voted for the other candidate, right? I mean, wouldn't you hate knowing that if you knew the truth about who your mom or dad voted for, that you would probably push them out of your life? But your mom and dad lied, so you just assume and you live in this bliss that they voted for the same person that you did. Whoever you vote for, I'm not going to cut you out of my life. But if you're the type that's willing to cut people out of your life because somebody voted for somebody that you didn't like, that's really not a good reason. If your mom or dad dislike your boyfriend and you marry them, and then in 3 or 4 years you realize they were right and you end up divorcing them, isn't it time to forgive your parents and go back into their life? You know, I mean, these are things that keep people away from having relationships with their nearest, dearest friends and family. Because the truth hurts, because when people are honest with one another, people end up not wanting anything to do with one another. And it's really kind of sad, but it's really the way that it is. And so today, Like every birthday of mine and every birthday of my sons and every holiday, every special day, it's spent apart. When these kids decide that they're going no contact, and they don't tell you they're going no contact, it's just all of a sudden a no contact situation, it just seems like the cruelest thing. Could you imagine if a parent told their kid at 14 or 15, hey, you're grounded, go to your room, I'm taking your cell phone, you're not allowed to talk to any friends or family or me, we're all gonna have you in a silent box in your room? You would say that's impossible, that's cruel. Get that parent and throw them in jail. Where's Child Protective Services? Yet when a child decides to do that to the parent, it's you go girl, you go guy, you don't need that toxic parent. And you got this echo chamber just pushing you forward. Well, here's the problem I have with that echo chamber. If what you're doing is so good and so natural and so the way it should be, why are you going to these videos looking for the echo chamber? I go on those videos and I go and I look at all the comments and I respond to some of the comments and I say, you know what? Any video where someone's telling you to get rid of your friends or family members, that's not a good YouTube channel. It's just not. If any channel does not talk about forgiveness and laying down old grudges and grievances and mending fences, then they're basically into burning bridges. So now I have this situation where I haven't really been able to see my son in the last 10, 12, 13 years. And you know, it goes so quick. I still feel like, where's my 12-year-old son? Look at this crazy dog. God, that dog's athletic. I'm such a happy-go-lucky person, but certain things really weigh on my heart and they get me sad. And one of the things that gets me sad is this new level of young adult that we have. The reason we know they're a little off is because teachers are quitting the classroom in droves. What's that mean? It means teachers don't really enjoy teaching these young, soon-to-be adults, right? These teenagers, and they just don't even like it. They're quitting the job in droves. These young people are then becoming young adults and having kids of their own, and it's becoming this horrible cycle where we're literally taking people that barely have an associate's, that barely have a bachelor's degree, and we're trying to talk them into becoming SPED teachers. You know, hey, you've never done special education. We're gonna give you an alternative cert, take this 8-hour course, and now you're qualified to be a SPED teacher. Not really. You know, not really. There's a lot of kids out there that have behavioral issues. Why? Probably because they're growing up in a single-parent household. There's no discipline in their lives. So what happens is the parents want to throw them into the school wants backup from the teachers and from the principal. There is no backup because the principal's afraid of the school board's afraid of the people are afraid of the teacher. It's just this horrible cycle that goes back and forth. And it all boils down to forgiveness. Why do we live in a world where we are so cool with shutting people out of our lives? It's very sad. It's very disappointing. So that's my event for the day. It's another not so happy birthday for me to celebrate, you know? And the truth is, even if he was in my life, the problem with young people, and I was young once upon a time, is they want to do their own thing. But man, I'm telling you, you young people are tough. You young people are cruel. You young people are just mean. You know, if you see somebody in their 20s and then you see them again in their 40s, there's a good chance that age has mellowed them out. There's a good chance that life's experiences that you go through from your 20s, 30s, and 40s will change you a little bit. You can't really change other people. That's not what I'm saying. But we all evolve and we all change. And if you're still angry at somebody from something that happened 12, 15 years ago, that you've apologized for time and time again, and you're just going to hold it against them forever, then maybe they're not the cruel person. Maybe you are. And again, it's one of those things where it's just like, golly, I wish I could get a hold of these people and find out, why are you against your parents? Because I'm telling you, half of the reasons that they say would probably make people shake their heads and say, that's not a good reason. You need to get over grudges and stuff. Go with your gut. If you know that your mom or dad is a horrible human being, then I guess stay out of their life forever. But if you just love to hold grudges and you don't tell people what's going on, and you choose to fight your battles with silence and with estrangement, then my God, you're gonna live in a world where one day that's gonna happen to you. And you're gonna end up wondering why people are doing this to you, when in reality, you do this to people as well. I have a good friend named Jeff from when I was a kid. I would love to call him, I would love to hang out with him, but he's got mental illness and he's literally somebody that's kind of a danger. So I don't hang out with him. I think that's a good reason to stay away from people when they're literally off their rocker and or they are a danger to you. But you want to know something? If all of a sudden he called up and said, hey, I've been on my medication for 3 years in a row. I want to forgive you for the goofy, weird things I said at 2 or 3 in the morning when I called you after drinking or doing drugs, I would be open to forgive. So I guess that's my vent for today. Be willing and open to forgive people before it's too late. Have a good day. Hey, I was just going to take a walk, but it's getting really, really dark out. But I wanted to let you guys know that this morning, what I forgot to tell you is that not only is today my son's birthday, but it's also the day that my Uncle David passed away. And I wanted to talk to you guys just real quick about, isn't it crazy how sometimes numbers and dates have special meaning to us? So forever and a day, October 12th will always be a day of things coming into the world with my son, and then things leaving the world with my Uncle David. And then in addition to that, I have other days that are very special like that as well. For example, my birthday is the same birthday that my grandmother's father was born, so my great-grandpa. And my great-grandpa was the first person in the world that I saw that passed away. So I think we have a lot of things that lead me to believe that we're in a simulation. Sometimes we forget how peaceful a neighborhood can be in the evening, but it really is, you know? So it feels nice out right now. I think it's like 93, believe it or not. But when it's 93 and there's a little breeze and the sun is down, it's not too bad. One of the things that I've noticed living in Arizona is I don't think it's the temperature as much as it's the direct sunlight. When that sunlight hits you, oh my God, it just makes you feel like you're 15, 20 degrees hotter than what you really are. Because, you know, when you're in the shade, it's usually not that bad. But it's weird though, it can still be incredibly warm in the shade. So, you know, don't get me wrong, it's still an uncomfortable heat. God, and I just can't believe it's this late in the year. I mean, we're only a couple of weeks away from Halloween. And if you guys celebrate Halloween in your neck of the woods, let me know. I live in a neighborhood that 20, 30 years ago, everybody had Christmas lights and everybody celebrated Halloween. And somewhere over the last, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years, Halloween became like a situation that only happens at malls, schools, and rich neighborhoods. And I feel like all the other smaller neighborhoods kind of gave up on it. If you feel the same, let me know. And if you plan on sitting out in the front yard and giving away candy, tell me about it. And I hope that you guys give away the full-size Snicker bars, no pressure. Anyway, have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow.